If you're wanting to be a real estate investor, guys, today's video, I'm going to be talking about the most important deal that you will ever do in your career, and that is your very first deal. Now, listen, I'm going to dive through 4 reasons that is, and by the 4th one, you guys are going to be chomping at the bit to get this done. There are so many benefits to this, your family, yourself. I could go on, but by that 4th reason, guys, you're going to take action, and I'm excited to see you on that journey. Let's get into it. Prior to my first deal, I was a completely different version of myself. I walked with less confidence. I had much less competence, right? I was a different human being. Now, who I am today in terms of the real estate world is because of that very first deal that I did. I used to think I needed $1 million a year to be able to be this real estate investor. I used to think that I would never be as smart as these guys that were investing and buying these rental properties. I used to think a lot of things that limited me and made my confidence much, much lower, right? And so I was a complete different person back then than I am today. And it's all because of taking action on that very first deal that I'm going to dive into. I'll never forget my first deal. This actually, I went 50-50 on this with my pops. We both put in 50% of a down payment. Now, that's where a lot of the fear came to, right? So I was in this education phase for so long, analyzing deals. My dad was in no way a real estate investor, right? So it's not like I was leaning on him for this deal. I felt more like he was leaning in on my education and we were splitting the risk by putting in that down payment. Now, this doesn't have to be your dad. This can be anyone in your circle that has some money that maybe you want to go in on a deal with, or maybe it's just yourself, right? So this was a super cheap property, $350,000 in Eastern Washington in a town called Moses Lake, Washington. This was something that was turnkey. This was back when rates were low. And so it cash flowed from day one. We didn't put a lot of work into it. But guess what? I had analyzed hundreds of deals before that. And finally taking the stride to make it happen was so freaking scary for me. I can't emphasize that enough. It was scary. Taking that first leap, there was like, I didn't have a lot of money to my name. Luckily, I was splitting that risk on the down payment, but this was a big deal for me. And so I'm going to dive into that even further about how that happened. The first thing that happened when we closed on that property is my identity changed. Guys, like this was such a rush for me. It felt like I finally went from the education, the analysis into actually a real estate investor. Like I felt like I could call myself that, which was a big step for me. Now that identity change like brought so much confidence in me. I had been working with the title companies, working with the property managers, working with the other agent. Like there was a lot going on here. This one was actually a for sale by owner. So it wasn't the agent, it was actually the seller that I was negotiating with. Again, my pops was nowhere involved in all of this process. He was just splitting the down payment. So I had felt like I had finally done a deal from start to finish, and my confidence was through the roof, and I was excited to get going on the next ones. And that's not to say that every single deal is as smooth as this one, because I can promise you that's not the case. And if you watch any of my other videos, you know that there's been a lot of bumps and bruises. There's so much confidence that comes from doing one of these deals because you've actually done it. And if it's an L, you take what you learn, you apply it to the next one. That's how we build in this industry. It's always going to work out as long as we stick to it. The second thing that I learned from my first deal is this, guys, competence. I'm going to hammer this because in my opinion, confidence and competence go together. As you're learning, your competence grows. And as your competence grows, your confidence grows, right? So now that I'd been through this whole process, I had felt a lot better about doing it again, right? I could now speak the language, right? I know what earnest money is. I know what the down payment, I know deadlines. I know a lot more about contract work because I had done it. I worked with title companies. I negotiated directly with the seller. My competence grew because I actually did it. I actually took action. Now, guys, this part that I'm talking about, this first deal, this competence piece, grows your education 100 times more than the education phase. Just doing one deal, whether it's 30 days for completion, you're going to get as much knowledge as 100 YouTube videos because it hits different when you're actually doing it. The third thing that I took from my first deal is this: systems. Guys, there's a lot of systems that you got to put in order when you buy your first deal, right? You have to set up your LLC. Once you set up your LLC, you then have to create a bank account. You have to set up systems with your property manager on how you're getting paid, on what type of P&L, profit and loss sheet you're getting. There's a lot of these systems that you want to organize when you're buying rental properties. Guess what? When you do that one time, it's so much easier to do it on the second time. Sometimes you don't even have to do it, right? Some people do an LLC for every single property, but I do it for every batch, right? So that second time, I'm not creating a new LLC. Maybe I like the property manager, so I'm using him again. A lot of your systems are much, much easier on your second go. So let that be a lesson. Do your first deal. The fourth and final thing that I took away from my first deal is this, guys, your team. Now, this goes hand in hand with your systems, in my opinion. I talked about your property manager in that aspect. Well, guess what? The team that you build in your first deal is going to be crucial for the rest of your portfolio, the rest of your career. Now, I'll break it down as this. Your title company, your agent, let's say, your property manager, your contractors, whatever it is. Let's say you have a perfect scenario and you absolutely love every single one of those vendors, that team that you worked with. Well, on your next deal, you don't have to look for those people anymore. And that's so much more of a peace of mind that limits your barrier of entry to that next deal. Now, let's say you only like half of them. Your contractor sucked, property manager didn't quite do what you wanted to. Guess what? You're still so much further ahead because half of the vendors that you liked, you are working with again and again. These people have your information. They have your systems down between how you work with them. It sounds like it's crossing the T's and dotting the I's, but guess what? It makes the mind space so much clearer after you do that. All these reasons, like they're massive. They're absolutely massive. I can't like hone in on that enough, right? This is the beginning of your snowball that can turn into a mountain, right? Now, what I want you to understand is the reason that a lot of people don't take this first step of the first deal is they think they need to be making $1 million. They think that they need to have like the brain of these experienced investors to get this done. I'm telling you that you don't need all of that. You really just need to take that first step, right? And that first step, that first deal is going to absolutely change your career. Listen, another thing, these people in your first deal, they think when you do this analysis paralysis that you need to get a home run on your first deal. And I'm telling you, that's not the case. Like, get a base hit. If you're looking for months and months and nothing works, get a base hit. And that competence, that confidence is going to help you boost the rest of your portfolio, boost the rest of your career. So there's no excuses on how you get into your first deal. I'm telling you, because of all these reasons that I listed, just get into your first deal and your career will change. So if you guys are still trying to figure out how to get your first deal, I created a cheap course just for people like you that will help you find, negotiate, and close on these seller financing deals. And I promise after you listen to that, it's going to make it sound a lot easier, a lot more possible. But listen, if that course isn't for you, I totally get it. You're still in the analysis. Please subscribe, like this video. I'd love to see you on the next video. And more importantly, thank you for watching. That's the most important part. And we'll see you on the next video.